Exposed, discover the sinister secrets of a cursed horror movie. Spine-chilling premiere 2025. Sarah stood in front of her new house, a crumbling shell that seemed to lean away from her, as if to escape. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows that danced in the evening light. It shouldn't he have felt this ominous. Her new beginning in Elmsworth was supposed to be a fresh start. But the peeling paint, shattered windows, and sagging roof sent a tremor of doubt through her bones. Whispers surrounded the old estate, tales of a filmmaker's horror movie that had vanished from history. Goosebumps prickled her skin. What had she walked into? Flashes of flickering lights caught her attention as she gathered her kids, Lily and Max, coaxing them inside. The air seemed thick. Closer inspection revealed faded photographs in the dusty corners, their eyes hollow and mournful, staring back at her. Muffled whispers like lost souls echoed through the empty halls at night, haunting her every step. And those shadows? Were they moving? She quickly dismissed the thought, reminding herself it was just her imagination. But deep down, she could feel the grip of dread tighten. Weeks passed, and the peculiarities spun out of control. The warmth of the sunlight felt surreal as her heart raced with every flicker of light. Disturbances spiraled around her. The children's laughter carried a convoluted twist, chilling her like an ice-cold wave. Were they being watched? Those local legends about haunted homes began to chip away at her resolve. Isolation wrapped around her like a suffocating blanket. Desperate, she approached the local police, but their responses were more dismissive than she could handle. Just old stories, nothing to worry about, they said, rolling their eyes. Worry gnawed at her gut, she had no safety net. It wasn't until she sought out Harold, the town elder, that she felt a flicker of hope. But even he seemed evasive. As he told tales of the cursed film, his words reflected something darker, a secret he was terrified to share. Something tasted sour in her mouth. She was left feeling exposed, vulnerable. Then came the stormy night, the air thick with the promise of chaos. As she rushed to check on her children after a frantic call from the babysitter, shadows pooled on her porch. A figure loomed just out of sight. Heart racing, breath in her throat, she clenched her fists and peered into the night. Gone. Nothing but stillness. Hairs on the back of her neck prickled as dread weighed her down. The weight of fear pressed heavily, and despair knocked on the door of her mind. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Determined to face whatever lurked in the shadows, Sarah decided it was time to confront her eccentric neighbor, the once beloved artist who seemed to harbor a deeper knowledge. Her heart raced. As she approached his door, every creak of the floorboards resonated through her. The air crackled with an electric tension. What if the urban legends were true, and she was now entwined in the tragic tapestry that bound them all? The walls of her home felt like they were closing in, and the laughter echoed once more. This time, it didn't sound like Lily or Max. Would she unravel the dark history gripping Elmsworth before it strangled her family? Draped in silence, the night grew heavy around her as she steadied herself for whatever was to come next. Fear tangled with courage inside her, but the question lingered like a ghost: what horrors awaited her just beyond that door? Sarah knocked, the loud sound barely piercing the heavy air that surrounded her. The door creaked open, revealing Gerald, the reclusive artist. His wild eyes darted across her face, as if searching for a hidden motive. Behind him, the scent of paint and linseed oil lingered, mixing with something more rancid. She wrinkled her nose but forced herself to take a step inside. "Missed you at the premiere," he said, a faint smile creeping in. Or maybe it was the other way around. "Gerald, I need your help." The tremor in her voice surprised her, but just as she spoke, shadows flickered in the corners of his dimly lit living room. She knew this was more than just the flickering bulbs. He raised an eyebrow, leaning back against the doorframe. Help with what? The house? Or are you talking about the movie? The movie, it's the movie, she forced out. It's not just a story. It feels real. I think it's connected to my family. Connected? In what way? Gerald took a step in, the door almost shutting behind him. I hear things at night. My kids, they words caught in her throat, and she swallowed hard. They're acting strange. Like they're not themselves. The artist's smile vanished. He stepped into her personal space, causing goosebumps to rush down her arms. It's worse than I thought, then. You've awakened something. He paused, his gaze flitting around the room as if glancing at the lurking horrors that would not reveal themselves to her. What do you mean? Panic tightened her chest as she desperately searched his face for answers. There's a reason the film was buried, why it vanished. It wasn't just a flop, it was a curse. Anyone involved with it, they didn't just lose their careers. They lost their souls. Chilled, Sarah steadied herself against the wall, puzzled and terrified. What do I do? I can't help you. I can only warn you. Gerald's eyes darkened, and his fingers trembled. But there's a way to end it. You need to find the original footage and destroy it. Where? Her mind raced back to the whispers and shadows she had felt in her home. What if the answers lurked in the walls, hidden along with the secret of the estate? Gerald hesitated, eyes wide. I don't know, but he leaned closer, as if afraid someone was listening. You're not safe here. They don't like visitors. A rustling sound echoed from the depths of his house. Both their heads snapped toward the noise, dread creeping in once more. What was that? Sarah breathed, her heart thrumming violently. Nothing. Just stay close to the light. As if on cue, the lights flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. Panic clawed up her throat. Gerald? A cold wind seeped in from the cracked window, and something whispered through the air, a low growl rising from the shadows. Run! He shouted, but before they could move, a figure emerged from the darkness behind him. A silhouette filled with malice, eyes gleaming like shards of glass. Sarah lunged forward, pushing past Gerald and into the dark hallway, feeling the breath of something unseen right behind her. I need my children. She screamed, racing toward the door. The moment she turned the handle, something grabbed her ankle from below, pulling her into the darkness. She screamed, her voice swallowed whole, as the echoes of laughter rang out, familiar yet twisted. Just as she thought she would lose her grip on reality, a flash of light illuminated a single frame. A film reel hung in the air like an accusation. What horrors had she dragged her family into? The question lingered ominously, unanswered. What price must she pay to confront the darkness that had taken root in Elmsworth? The darkness swallowed her whole, pulling Sarah into an abyss of terror. She yanked her foot free, but the grip lingered, an icy caress around her ankles. Heart racing, she stumbled forward into the hallway, nearly tripping on unseen obstacles. Gerald! She cried out again, panic twisting her insides. The dim light from the living room barely penetrated the cursed gloom. Everything felt wrong. The air thickened, laden with whispers, and shadows lurked like predators. It was a living nightmare, and she was the prey. A second flash of light flickered through her mind, a brief moment of clarity. Gerald had spoken of something hidden in the walls. But was he right? Would confronting even more darkness bring her closer to saving her children, or was it a fool's errand? Find the footage, she muttered to herself, repeating it like a mantra as she pressed deeper into the house. Each step sent tendrils of dread creeping along her spine. The growling echoed again, a low rumble that made her skin crawl. She refused to look back, knowing the figure still lurked behind her, hungry and waiting. She reached the door to the basement, its handle cold and slick under her trembling fingers. Voices murmured from below, beckoning her with promises and threats. It made her stomach churn. Taking a deep breath, Sarah pushed the door open, revealing a steep set of stairs plunging into impenetrable darkness. The lack of light made the shadows dance like mocking specters around her. "Come on, Sarah," she whispered, forcing herself to step down, the wooden steps creaking ominously under her weight. The growl morphed into something more, an unearthly whispering word she could not comprehend, wrapping around her mind like frost. Another step down, and she could feel the heat leave her body, replaced by a bone-deep chill. The bottom of the stairs loomed like the mouth of a cavern ready to swallow her whole. Sweat dripped down her brow, but she pushed forward, destined to uncover the truth. At the basement floor, the dim glow of a single, flickering bulb barely illuminated a scene that twisted her stomach. Old film reels were strewn across the floor, flanked by broken furniture and dust-laden canvases. A surge of hope flickered through her. She could sense it here, the cursed footage, the secrets that linked to her family. Suddenly, the whispering intensified, and shadows began to coalesce. A gust of wind howled through the space, the whispers now echoing through the walls. "Sarah, Sarah," she jerked back, her heart pounding violently in her chest. The shadows contorted, writhing and pulsating, growing closer with each moment. Fear gripped her. She couldn't hesitate. Rummaging through the tangle, she spotted a battered film canister, old and tarnished like memories long forgotten. Could this be it? This had to be the key. A jolt of desperation coursed through her as she grabbed it. But as her fingers closed around it, something cold brushed against her neck. She turned quickly, but it was too late. A shadow loomed large behind her, a monstrous figure etched from pure darkness. The eyes glimmered with hunger, and the growl morphed into a deafening roar. "Sarah!" It was Gerald's voice, suddenly echoing from above, but it was too distant. "Run!" The entity lunged at her. She had seconds, moments to decide. In her hands, the past threatened to engulf her, to bring her family further into madness. With a scream of defiance, she raised the film canister, the only weapon she had, and shouted, "You want this? Come get it." She spun, darting toward a small window at the far end of the basement. It felt like freedom, but outside, the shadows loomed larger, countless figures waiting, ready to trap her again. Terror surged anew. A price must be paid, but what would she sacrifice? As she reached for the window's latch, a hand shot out from the dark, grabbing her wrist with a grip like iron. Fear squeezed the air from her lungs, the room spun as she was pulled back into the shadows. The choice was made: either she faced these terrors head-on, or she would lose everything she loved, and... Then, as the darkness enveloped her, she felt a chilling whisper in her ear, "Welcome back." What had she awakened? Would she survive the price of light and shadow, or was this only the beginning of a nightmare that would consume her forever? The grip on her wrist tightened, and Sarah gasped, her heart pounding with the speed of a freight train. She twisted in the suffocating darkness, desperate to break free, but she was caught in a vice-like hold. Fear surged, and her mind raced. What was out there? What wretched thing wanted her? "You want it?" She shouted again, defiance mingling with desperation. "Then come and take it." The shadows seemed to shiver at her words, momentarily hesitating as if weighing their options. But the figure behind her only leaned closer, cold breath ghosting over her neck, sapping her strength. She shivered violently, unwilling to surrender. With one mighty effort, she jerked her arm, and this time the shadow released her. But in its place, a wall of darkness crashed down, engulfing her in a cacophony of whispers. They clawed at her sanity, murmuring secrets she wasn't ready to hear. "They brought you back, you must remember." The cold air bit at her skin as she stumbled back, trying to find her footing amid the chaos. Her eyes darted around, searching for an escape, but the basement twisted before her. What had once been a straightforward path now morphed into a labyrinth of shadows, each turn swallowing her hope. Ignoring the shivers of dread, Sarah raced towards the flickering bulb, her only anchor in this swirling abyss. As she drew closer, the light pulsed rhythmically, reflecting a heartbeat of desperation. She had to find the footage. It had to be there, it was the key to her children. Her fingers brushed the canister in her pocket, the cold metal anchoring her sanity, and she took a deep breath, pushing past the whispers. Focus, she muttered hastily under her breath, ignoring the clawing voices that sought to derail her. Find it. You need to save them. Searching frantically through the debris, her flashlight beam flickered morbidly, revealing other objects lost to time: an old teddy bear, children's drawings covered in dust and mold. Panic gripped her memories of her children. The weight of what was hidden here threatened to crush her, every piece a reminder of what she could lose. Above the clamor of darkness, the growling returned, more pronounced now, echoing around her like a death knell. If she didn't act fast, she wouldn't just lose her children, she'd become one with the shadows. Please, she murmured, the very word escaping her in a choked whisper. I'll do anything. Suddenly, a figure materialized in the flickering light, shadowy but familiar. Gerald stood there, or at least what was left of him. His eyes, once filled with warmth, now bore a cold void that unnerved her. Sarah, he said, voice dripping with despair, it's not what you think. You can't take it back. It's already too late. Without thinking, she lunged forward, desperation fueling her. What did you do? Panic dripped from her voice. Tell me. Every choice has consequences, he warned, as if the very air around them thickened with emotion. You have to let go or everything is lost. The floor beneath her pulsated as shadows weaved around her feet, ensnaring her in an icy grip. Sarah's resolve hardened. I want to let them take me. I'll find a way to save them. A knife of fear sliced through her chest as Gerald relaxed his stance, shadows undulating behind him like a living entity. Time hung in the air, thick and heavy. The basement felt like it was closing in, the walls whispering a warning, a plea, and just as she reached for him, pulling her own courage together, the ground trembled beneath her. The whispers escalated into a deafening roar, a tide of sound that practically shook her bones. She felt that same icy claw at her ankles again, grasping, pulling, forcing, and she could see it, a vision of the horror behind the wall. Sarah! A voice echoed from far above, a lifeline in the turmoil. The shadows shrieked. She had to decide, would she confront the hidden terror, or was there no way out? In a final act of defiance, she screamed into the chaos, I'll confront it. I'll fight for them. Then everything erupted into darkness, the shadows screaming her name like a haunting refrain. Could she truly face the evil that not only sought to claim her but to obliterate everything she loved? The whispers crescendoed, and Sarah vanished, swallowed by the maw of darkness, leaving nothing but her resolve dangling in the air. What had she truly awakened, and at what cost? The world twisted around Sarah as she plunged deeper into the void, time seemingly collapsing under the weight of her fear. The shadows wrapped around her like serpents, each one hissing secrets that stung her ears, drowning her in an ocean of dread. She could still hear Gerald's voice echoing in that dark place, warning her, but it was drowned by a frenzy of whispers clawing at her mind. Choose, they hissed. Choose wisely. Her heart raced, and she willed herself to focus, pushing against the pull of despair. The cold felt alive against her skin, prickling with unseen eyes watching her. What had she triggered? Her instincts screamed at her to fight, to claw her way back to the surface of reality, away from the clutches of whatever haunted this basement. Stop! Sarah shouted into the nothingness. Just show yourself. With a sudden rush, the shadows peeled back, revealing walls covered in faded images, scenes from the movie that had once been a source of joy, now twisted into grotesque mockeries. Parents and children locked in eternal screams. Why? She gasped, dread curling in her stomach. What do you want from me? In the corner of her eye, she noticed a glimmer metallic against the chaos. She probed closer, heart pounding as she discovered an old film projector, its lens cracked but alive. It threatened to spew out the memories it contained, memories that should have stayed buried. Without thinking, she reached for the reels, hands trembling. Maybe this was it, maybe this was the key. But as her fingers brushed against the cold metal, a chilling cacophony erupted, drowning her in a dissonant symphony of cries her children. The endless stream of panic swirled in her mind like a hurricane. "Let me go." She yanked back, but the whispers tightened their grip, their presence suffocating her spirit. "You awoke us," a voice slithered through the chaos. "No. I didn't mean to." Panic surged. What had she unknowingly unleashed? The shadows began to morph, twisting into figures, children with faces distorted with agony. The sight chilled her as realization hit her like a punch to the gut. Gerald's warning had been more than just words. She'd broken a pact that tied the past to this cursed place. And then, from the fog of shadows, she saw them. Her children, pale, trembling, their eyes wide with terror, fingers reaching out towards her. "Mom!" They screamed, a desperate plea that sliced straight through her heart. "Hold on!" she cried, fighting against the darkness that sought to pull them apart. "I'm coming." Sarah lunged forward, instinctively pulling her flashlight from her pocket, its beam cutting through the oppressive gloom. She focused on her children, their faces lighting up momentarily against the darkness. But with each step forward, the ground quaked and shifted beneath her. "Sarah!" They shrieked, terror etched across their faces. The shadows trembled, growing restless. "You can't save them," hissed the voices, a chorus of mockery. "They belong to us now." The pressure around her chest was unbearable. Time felt like it was fracturing as her resolve wavered. Remembering Gerald's words, every choice had consequences. The realization clawed at her mind. What if she couldn't save them? "No!" she shouted against the howling wind of despair. "They are mine." Fury ignited within her, stronger than the choking grip of the shadows. She wouldn't let them take her children without a fight. Drawing on every ounce of her strength, she screamed back at the darkness, each word a weapon aimed at shattering its hold. "I claim them back." The shadows quaked in ire, twisting around her and shattering into jagged edges. Bright light burst forth from the projector as images within began to reel, vivid colors and sounds, memories long past flooding in like a tsunami. Memories that felt both familiar and completely foreign. But as the light engulfed everything, a final whisper cut through. A promise or a threat? "Your choice will echo forever." The darkness pulled back, sweeping Sarah and her children into a vortex of memories, forcing her to confront what she had not wanted to face. With a heart full of dread and determination, she reached for the flickering light, ready to pull them back from the brink. But what memories would she uncover? Could she really rewrite the past, or was she doomed to repeat the horror? The shadows sneered, knowing the truth she still clung to sometimes. Facing the past meant finding more than she could bear to endure. As the light expanded, it swallowed them whole, drowning everything in pure white brightness. Would it be her salvation or her ultimate damnation? Bright light enveloped them, overwhelming and blinding. Sarah shielded her eyes as the sudden rush of warmth flooded over her skin, contrasting sharply with the chilling shadows that had clung to her moments before. A moment of hope? Or a trap? Panic didn't wait long for answers. "Mom!" The terrified voices of her children pulled at her heart, but where were they? The brightness faded, revealing a familiar scene, a living room, filled with laughter, yet somehow twisted. Shadows flickered at the corners, mocking her, taunting her with the resemblance of what had once been a home. "Is this it?" she whispered, dread crawling up her spine. "Is this my past? Why did you come here, Sarah?" The question fell softly but heavily, as if the air itself had spoken. She turned, heart racing, to see a figure materialize from the flash. Gerald stood before her, his expression grave, eyes shadowed with a warning. But around him danced the phantoms of their children, shimmering in and out of clarity. Their faces twisted between joy and distress. "They're trapped," she cried, clutching her head as visions clawed at her sanity. "You said I could save them." "They are your choices made real," he replied, his voice an echo. Each path, a consequence, a reflection of the deal you struck. Deal? She fought back tears, feeling the ground beneath her tremble. What do you mean? As if answering her, the room transformed again. Images bent and twisted to show flickers of past moments, family outings that had turned sour, birthday parties ending in tears, shadows lurking at the edges, growing bolder. The laughter morphed into cries, a haunting symphony of memory and regret. No! Sarah screamed. Stop it! She pressed against her temples, trying to block out the horror as the images threatened to break her. This isn't my fault. Isn't it? Gerald stepped closer, his face twisting with sadness. Your fears gave them power. You made the choices. Now, the shadows are hungry for more. Sarah's breath came in gasps as she scanned the room, desperate for her children, the pulse of their existence barely visible through the fog of dread. Their faces floated in and out of view, panic-stricken images mingling with the grinning shadows. They want to take them away. She yelled, emotions tearing her apart. I want to let them. A whirlwind of memories swirled around her, burst forth like shards of glass, each one a glimpse into a life she thought she had controlled. But with each memory came another shadow, reaching out, hungry and insatiable. Mom! The voices turned desperate, weaving together into a choir of terror that echoed through her very being. Help us! Stay with me! Sarah shouted, breaking through the tempest of despair. I'll find you. I promise. But the force pulling her apart was growing stronger. Images morphed into a dark wave, a tide rising to drown her in guilt. The sorrow felt like knives slicing through her heart. She stumbled, flow of light cracking. Behind her, the projector whirred ominously, blaring out echoes of a life that had spiraled into chaos. Step back. She commanded, gathering her will, her spirit hardening like steel. If she was to face this, she had to reclaim what was lost. You don't own me. An unseen force collided with her resolve, sending a shockwave that lit up the dim corners of her mind. The shadow shrieked, a sound that cut deep, mere feet from her. The room flickered with agitation, the laughter of the past erupting in a crescendo of horror. Mom! They were crying now, fully real, fully terrified, just as she reached for their faces, visages writhing like flames. Time seemed to freeze. In that moment, a darkness unfurled deep within the flickering shadows. Your choice will echo forever, the whisper returned, sultry and sinister, curling around her. What had she awakened? Could she really save them, or was she just feeding the beast that hungered? Sarah Gerald's voice trembled, breaking, and for a fleeting second, she understood. There was no telling what memories awaited her if she dared step forward. In the silence that followed, dread washed over her. Like ice, waiting to see if the darkness would consume them all, and then, as if the world itself held its breath, the light dimmed again, revealing an exit or perhaps a new terrifying truth, and then, in that fragile moment vibrating with suspense, the question loomed heavy: could she confront what lurked on the other side, or would she only find deeper shadows calling her name? The shadows pulsed around Sarah, dark creatures flitting at the edges of her vision as she stood, trembling but resolute. The glowing exit beckoned, promising escape, yet a suffocating pull held her in place. Her heart thundered, a frantic drum echoing in the disturbed silence that now enveloped her. If she stepped forward, what would she find? What lay between her and the light? Mom! The desperate cries of her children sliced through her thoughts, reigniting the flames of her determination. She had sacrificed so much already. She wouldn't lose them again, not to this darkness. They needed her. With every ounce of strength, she stepped forward, the air around her thickening like molasses. Each inch closer felt like wading through a swamp of despair, and shadows reached out, scraping at her skin like cold, clammy fingers. Whispers echoed, words of doubt and regret clawing at her resolve. You can't save them, a voice hissed, slinking through the edges of her mind. They belong to the darkness. No. She cried, refusing to let the shadows win. They thrived on her fears, and she felt their hunger surge with every step she took. Yet, with each heartbeat, the light grew stronger, breaking the suffocating grip of encroaching gloom, but the laughter morphed again, slipping into maniacal shrieks that made her gut clench with dread. Her children's faces twisted, confusion and terror battling for dominance within their once happy expressions. Reality twisted around her, and she felt her grip on sanity slipping as the shadows swirled around, tightening like a noose. "Stay away from them!" she shouted, channeling all the love she had for her children into a shield. The shadows recoiled momentarily, and Sarah felt a flicker of empowerment surge through her. Gerald's figure still loomed nearby, torn between sorrow and authority. "You think you can overcome this?" he asked, but his tone was less mocking, almost pleading. "You stand at the edge of a chasm filled with your own making. Do you not see?" "What are you saying?" she gasped, pushing through the weight of despair. "What else have I done?" "They consume what you refuse to confront. The blame, the anger, the pain, let it go." His words cut through the howling shadows, revealing fragments of her past moments of weakness, decisions laced with regret that echoed back to her like taunts. The shadows fed on those memories, shadows that not only belonged to her but to the life she tried so hard to create, to control. Waves of anguish crashed over her, threatening to drown her in their grip. "Stop!" she cried out, wrapping her arms around herself, as if to shield against the onslaught. "Let me go. I want to let you take them. Feel the weight of your truth." The shadows roared, their voices a cacophony of past mistakes as they tried to tear at the fabric of her will. And then, beneath the chaos, another voice emerged, a sweet, small sound, pure and unwavering. "Mom, please." Sarah's heart split open. It was her daughter, her light. In that instant, she realized the depth of her choice. The fear and pain didn't belong to her children, they were hers to bear. She had to confront them, to truly understand before she could stand against the darkness. "I'm coming!" she screamed, a surge of defiance pulsing through her. She stepped toward the exit again, forcing aside the shadows. Her eyes met those of her children, their faces filled with faith. With each stride, her will became a weapon. She would no longer cower in fear. The room trembled, walls quaking as if in acknowledgement of her resolve. The shadows writhed in agony while the light transformed, illuminating the corners once more, but just as she reached her children, a blinding flash swept through the room. It enveloped her, spiraling into the uncertainty of crossing into that light. Reality warped, and with it came a heightened sensation of terror. Where it had once offered safety, it now loomed ominously, a threshold teeming with unknown possibilities. "What have you unleashed?" whispered the seductive voice once more, lingering like smoke in the space between breaths. With the shadows looming behind her and her children's hands grasping at hers, Sarah stood at the edge of choice. The darkness trembled, but would it devour them all? Would her strength be enough? She had taken the first step, but what awaited her on the other side would test her courage in ways she had never imagined. And then, as the light pulsed with foreboding energy, a sudden thought clawed at her mind. If she was meant to confront her past, how deep did the shadows truly run? What awaited her if she pressed on remained unknown, shrouded in pulsating fear and despair, begging the question: would the truth save her, or was it a path paved for ultimate destruction? The light enveloped Sarah, but instead of warmth, it felt like ice. The grip on her children's hands tightened as the space around them began to twist and churn. Their faces blurred, their voices fading into an echoing void that pressed against her heart. Panic surged. "Mom!" The cry was distant, submerged in an abyss of swirling colors and sounds. A sensation of falling followed. She was weightless, caught between what was and what could be. The echo of her children's voices whispered like wind through trees dispersed, fragile. "Return," came that haunting, sultry tone again, deep and persuasive. "Face your fear, Sarah. Only then can you be free." But freedom came with a cost. Images fought to surface from the murk of her mind, failed moments, piercing regrets, and choices turned to ash. Memories of laughter tangled with shadows of despair, trying to consume her, each one tugging at the very fabric of her being. Let go, it seemed to mock her, the shadows closing in as if waiting for a slip, a falter. Was this how hopelessness felt? She clenched her eyes shut, refusing to relive the agony. "Mom!" The voice broke through, pure and tear-drenched. "Help us!" Tears streamed down her cheeks, blurring her vision. Such weight to be responsible for their suffering, to have dragged them into this nightmare. It felt like drowning. But she had fought through terror before, she could do it again. Suddenly, a flicker of warmth ignited within her, and she summoned the love that fueled her determination. "I will not abandon you." She opened her eyes, and the shadows recoiled with a hiss. The brightness surged, its edges shielding her like a protective barrier, repelling the darkness that wanted to claim them. "Stronger than you think," Gerald's last words echoed, and with each heartbeat, confidence built in her chest. She took a step forward, trusting the light, calling on the resolve buried deep from years of maternal instinct. With every step, the shadows howled, desperate to draw her back, but the myriad voices faded as she propelled herself forward, anchoring herself to her purpose. The tunnel of light twisted, suffocating yet inviting, echoing with possibilities. No longer just to save her children but to redeem herself, every moment of indecision, every choice laced with regret. The warmth wrapped around her like a cocoon, urging her to push onward. Then came an abrupt silence. The sudden stillness engulfed her, and though her steps quickened, it felt as if everything had stooped to listen, to watch. The light blurred, shifting colors, coiling like a snake, and there, just ahead, a figure emerged. Sarah. The voice was twisted yet familiar, a maternal echo asking her to return. It was her mother's face, but there was something sinister in the smile. "You always thought you could escape this, didn't you?" A cold dread washed over her. There was no escaping the past. Her mother's truths mingled with wretched lies. Shadows twisted in the corners, dark fingers seeking to pull her back. She staggered but held her ground. "No. I don't owe you anything." Sarah's voice rang out, full of defiance, wielding her determination like a sword. The shadows stirred, whispering promises of pain. "Come back, Sarah," her mother urged, hands reaching through the light, betrayal masked in beauty. "You belong with us." But on the other side of the light, her children remained, small and innocent, straining against the darkness that threatened to drown them. Their radiant faces shone brighter than any illusion. She couldn't turn back. "Stay away!" she screamed, but her heart raced with doubt. Was she ready to confront the truths her mother cloaked in deception? A flash of memories pulled her, the fabric of her soul teetering on the brink of a revelation. If she stepped forward, she could shred the veil of lies. But the price lingered. What truths awaited to swallow her whole? The shadows churned, and with it came the echo of the past, questions swirling like a tempest. Was she truly strong enough? Was she prepared to face her worst fear, the foundation of her being? In a heartbeat, the delightful light flickered ominously, revealing unknown depths. As the chill of realization coursed through her, a new panic set in. What if confronting the truth shattered everything? And then, she hesitated, voice trembling. What awaited her if she pressed on remained as uncertain as the shadow's last claim. Would the truth redevelop her very existence, or would it forge a path to utter darkness? Dread nestled in her gut. Did she really want to unveil the heart of her shadows? The void pulsed, alive with an unsettling energy. Each heartbeat felt amplified, a drumbeat of fear echoing around her. Sarah's instincts screamed at her to retreat, yet the dark dance of shadows behind her mother's figure thrummed with a sinister temptation. The abyss had a voice, seductive and laced with despair. "Sarah, there's nothing out there for you. Only emptiness, only heartache." Her mother's lips twisted into a smile that chilled Sarah's bones. The shadows extended, curling like smoke, caressing her skin with frigid tendrils. The air thickened, suffocating her resolve. "Stop!" she shouted, forcing herself to push through the darkness closing in. Each word was a battle cry imploring the light to hold firm, begging her will to hold strong. The shadows hissed, a cacophony of voices rising like a storm. "You failed them, you know. You brought them here. They don't trust you." "No." The denial burst forth, a blazing flame against their whispers. "I did what I thought was best." She glanced toward her children, their faces distorting in anguish, like marionettes on a fraying string. The hurt in their eyes seared into her heart. A lingering doubt surfaced, memories began to form again, her neglect, her shortcomings, the love given but too often overshadowed by fear. With each remembrance, the shadows grew bolder, hungry for her pain. "Shame," they hissed. "Regret. No. You don't own me." She stepped forward, fighting against the tide of history that sought to drown her in guilt. Images flashed of missed moments, every birthday forgotten, every lullaby sung without heart. But then, she recalled laughter, their little fingers clutching hers, promises whispered. The warmth surged back, momentarily illuminating her despair. "Sarah," her mother's voice slipped through the darkness, sweet yet perverse. "Face it, my dear. You can't escape the legacy we share. Join me." "Never." Her defiance felt like a spark in the vast blackness. It ignited a fury that coursed through her veins. With each breath, she absorbed the strength of her love, a fierce love that couldn't be snuffed out. The shadows shrieked, collapsing upon her, but she stood firm, a lighthouse amidst a storm. "You have no power over me. I choose to face the truth." Light erupted, bursting forth like a supernova. It washed over her mother, illuminating the twisted figure with clarity. For a fleeting moment, Sarah's eyes met her mother's, a reflection of pain and desperation, years of expectation strangling the hope. In that beat, she saw fear mirrored in her mother's gaze. Was it fear of the truth, or the fallout of their shared history? Suddenly, the light flickered, revealing a deep chasm behind her mother. A dark void, a mirror of the horrors she tried to escape, the truths she buried in her heart. It churned and twisted, inviting her to step closer, to unearth the buried pain and shame. "Go on," her mother beckoned, voice dripping with a cruel promise. "See what you are truly made of." Sarah's heart raced. How could she step into the shadows when they threatened to consume everything she held dear? But she realized, the only way out was through. She remembered the promise she had made to her children to be brave, to reclaim them from the darkness that stalked. Sarah, the chilling echo of her name sunk deep into her mind, taunting and mocking. She took a deep breath, steadied herself. "I will reclaim my truth." And with that declaration, she took a courageous step toward the gaping void, where light and darkness seemed to converge, and her heart pounded furiously in her chest. Then came a flash, a blinding moment revealing an unsettling truth. In the depths of the shadows, she glimpsed her children, tethered by chains forged from her own fears. Dread pooled around her heart. "Will you save them?" the shadows whispered enticingly. "Or will you let them fall into despair?" The question lingered, heavy and grim in the silence. All at once, dread froze her heart. What if stepping forward into the darkness meant abandoning everything she loved? The weight of the decision pressed down, a suffocating blanket of uncertainty. Would she emerge triumphant or succumb to the shadows, forever consumed? The chosen path lay ahead, shrouded in fog and uncertainty, and somewhere, deep inside, she felt the stirrings of something sinister. What truths awaited her just ahead? How much was she willing to sacrifice for the light? The moment Sarah stepped into the void, her world exploded in white. The blinding brightness engulfed her, swallowing the shadows, the whispers, and every ounce of doubt. Fear mixed with defiance, flooding her heart like a burning river. "Mom!" The cries of her children echoed in her mind like chimes in a storm, fueling her strength. She couldn't let them be swallowed by that darkness any longer. Pushing against the light, memories flooded her, moments of laughter and the soft grip of tiny hands in hers. But entwined were memories steeped in regret. She had failed them in ways she desperately tried to forget. How many times had she chosen fear over love? The shadows had taken root in her doubt, growing ferociously, but now, she faced their source. Suddenly, the light coalesced into a figure, her children, bound by an ethereal chain that glimmered like a thread of hope. "We're here, Mom. Don't leave us." Their faces were twisted in terror, eyes pleading for her strength. She staggered closer, transcending the gnawing dread. She couldn't lose them again. Gerald's haunting words echoed in her ears, "The shadows consume what you refuse to confront." Facing her fears had become a necessity, not an option. "No!" she screamed, defiance painting her voice with fury. "You don't own them. You don't own me." As if propelled by her words, the chain binding her children began to fray. They thrashed against their unseen captors, courage igniting in their little hearts. The shadows writhed, shrieking, their moans echoing through the void. "I choose love." Her voice rang clear, resonating as if amplified by 1,000 beating hearts. "I choose you." The chains flickered, unraveling as light surged through her like fire. In that moment, she understood, they were intertwined, each moment of fear she harbored both a weakness and a strength. It was her love for them that broke the grasp of darkness, and then, like the dawn breaking through a storm, the shadows recoiled, howling furiously. The chains snapped apart, and her children fell into her arms, solid and warm. Relief crashed over her like tide. She had reclaimed them from the brink, but the energy that had burst from her felt like an impending backlash. The shadows were angry now, swelling and twisting, rushing toward her in one last desperate, ravenous clash. Her eyes widened, heart racing. Had she truly saved them? Or was this just the beginning of a more horrifying battle? "Stand with me," she urged her children, gripping their shoulders tightly. "We'll face this together." "Emom!" Lily cried, eyes wide with panic. "They're coming. I want to let them take us." Sarah cried in response, summoning the strength born from maternal instinct. "With love, we can fight them." The waves of darkness surged, a howling tempest of malice, but Sarah stood firm, her children beside her, united in their light. "Love, hope, and truth." Sarah shouted, and the words echoed, amplifying her spirit, wrapping around them like a shield against the onslaught. In a flash, the shadows struck. But instead of crumbling, Sarah pushed forward, feeling the warmth of her kids, their trust igniting a fire within. "Leave us!" she roared, determination reverberating through the air. With each breath, she drew strength from the love that thrummed through their small circle. The darkness surged against them like a raging river, but their light blazed brighter against the coming storm. The void crackled with energy, an electric pulse they could feel deep in their bones, and then, in a final eruption, the shadows recoiled, bent to her will. The air lit up, golden and fierce, a burst of warmth that chased the dark away. Her spirit soared, buoyed by the power of their connection. They stepped forward together, breaking through the barricade of evil. In an explosion, the light ignited, swallowing reality. When the brilliance receded, they found themselves standing in their living room, sunlight streaming through the windows, warmth and life filling the space. "Mom!" Max cried, where he had been, confused temporarily and then awash with relief. The shadows were gone, banished by the courage born from her love. Silence enveloped the room, yet it felt alive, filled with the remnants of triumph and whispered freedom. Trembling with the exhaustion of survival, Sarah hugged her children tightly, holding them as if they were precious lifelines. Tears of joy streamed down, a cathartic release. "We did it," she whispered, kneeling down to meet their eyes. "We faced the darkness together." As laughter broke free, a touch of sadness echoed just beneath the surface, memories of what had almost been lost. But the warmth of connection enveloped them, drawing them closer. In that moment, they knew peace had finally returned to their home. With a heart full of hope, Sarah glanced at the shadows that had once threatened to engulf them. There was no fear anymore, just gratitude for the strength of love that had triumphed, forging an unbreakable bond within her family. This was a new beginning. As they basked in the warmth of their unity, they drew strength from the dark moments faced and conquered together. Elmsworth was no longer just a haunted place. It had transformed into a sanctuary of strength and healing for Sarah and her children, a safe haven where they could rebuild, thrive, and tell their story for years to come. Now, the call echoed. They had faced greater fears and emerged alive. They had triumphed. Sarah gathered her kids. "Let us make memories," she suggested with a soft smile, and as they walked out into the bright world waiting for them, she couldn't help but feel peace embrace her whole heart. But even as the sun shone over Elmsworth, she knew better. The whispers of darkness had been silenced, but vigilance would be a lifelong commitment. Together, Sarah said, glancing back once more, "We'll never turn away from the light again." And so, they stepped forward into the unfolding mystery of a bright future woven with possibility and hope, forever entwined by love. Now that the story is complete, let's take action. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any upcoming exclusive tales. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and support the channel. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about the conclusion. I want to hear your impact and reactions. And don't wait even one more second. Share this story with at least 5 friends who need to experience this epic conclusion. Your support means everything, so let's keep this adventure alive together.